Right, guys. So, welcome back to now the fourth episode of the weekly review. As normal, joined by Jay and Jack. So, a relatively positive week in Huddersfield Town. There's been few rumours of incomings. We've had two games. So, we'll start on Middlesbrough, a 2-1 defeat. So, Jack, do you want to start us off with that?
Yeah, and we did get, speaking of starting off, we got off to the perfect start in that game, as we have done quite often. So we make a few chances. We get a good free kick in Isaac Mbenza's sort of range, and you sort of know what's happening next at this point. Straight in the top corner, beautiful. He's statistically the best free kick taker in the Championship at the moment, which is pretty astounding. So yeah, it was a fantastic goal, and unfortunately, soon after, as Borough were turning up the pressure a little bit, he had to go off with a groin injury, and he's still not back. He wasn't back for Swansea. We don't really know how long he's going to be out for, so that was quite a shift in that game, and we all know what happened next. So Jay, I think you can talk about Borough's first goal.
Yeah, it was a brilliant goal. Let's be honest, Duncan, what more? I think Naby Sarr and O'Brien probably should have done better. Lazy legs were stuck out, and I think that kind of explains our defensive woes. We're just either a bit overzealous when we tackle, which led to our penalty afterwards, or we just don't put a proper challenge in. And I think this time it was the latter. Taking up and away from Watmore, because it was a brilliant solo effort, but I think on the road especially we're just woeful defensively, and obviously hindsight with the Swansea win, obviously we now know what it feels like to win. So hopefully we can transfer that to Derby tomorrow, as you're going to watch, and maybe be a bit more resolute in defence. But that's definitely one of our downfalls, and I think the sooner we iron that out, and it shows, we could be a quality team. So the sooner we iron that out and kind of get a consistent centre-back partnership, the better we'll do, I think.
Yeah, I think the Lewis O'Brien at left back point is something that we do need to speak about, because obviously with injuries and with the suspension of Harry Toffolo for 3 games, personally I don't think he was that bad against Wycombe. I thought he was really good up and down the pitch. But again, Middlesbrough just showed that we do need a left back or to back up Harry Toffolo, and obviously with Jayden Brown also being out, Lewis O'Brien naturally is the only option, with him being a left-footed and somewhat more defensive-minded than Bacuna, as we've seen Bacuna play right back. So it's good to have that versatility as such, but I think that it's something that potentially needs looking at in the summer. I know there's obviously Jayden Brown, Toff. Aaron Rowe showed that he could play there when he came on, and we've also got some youngsters coming through the academy. But it's something that kind of needs to be looked at as like somebody that can play there as well as playing like centre back as well, maybe, such as Harry Toffolo can do. But for when Harry Toffolo's injured, Jayden Brown's been somebody that's been injury prone for the past year or so. We haven't really seen much of him, so it might be worth having a look at somebody that can cover centre back but also play as a left-sided fullback.
Yeah, definitely. And just on that, the tackle that Lewis put in for Borough's penalty, playing at left back was really poor. It was really rash, as Jay says. The rash tackle, and Ashley Fletcher converted that penalty. Should Ryan Schofield have done better? Absolutely. I think that's just how he is at the moment. I think he's completely shot of confidence. I think if it was me, I would have not played him against Swansea, but he did play, and what happened, obviously, and we'll touch on that later. And we, in the Borough game, we started off 1-0 up, and at half-time we 2-1 down again. And then Aaron Rowe comes on, and he's absolutely brilliant, isn't he? Kieran Phillips came on later, and he was fantastic. He was extremely unlucky not to score. But yeah, that Borough game finished 2-1. So what do you think? Just should we have got more out of that game? Because we did have the chances to maybe steal a point or maybe get even more. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, Schofield should have saved that, and I think also what we haven't mentioned was how he came out and flapped at a ball which just completely missed him, and they ended up scoring. But thankfully, it was offside. You're right; he's got no confidence in him, and I think the exact opposite of that was Aaron Rowe, Kieran Phillips, breath of fresh air, and like you said, we came out second half like a team who realised we need to kind of book our ideas up here. And Phillips he could have had a brace, could Phillips. I think Bettinelli, if I'm right, pulled off an absolutely brilliant save near post, and obviously he hit the post as well. So it's positive, and I think it just shows how resurgent we can be. So to answer your question, I think we deserve more from that game, but it'll come to a point where we do get what we deserve out of an away game because we haven't won in ages, and I think it'll come. It'll come.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Like for 2021 up to yesterday, up to Tuesday at the very least, it's been a story of we deserve more in games. We just haven't performed for a full game, and we'll get on to yesterday's game and how we did. But I think away from home, especially, it's just I don't know where it is that actually it's something where like needs to be changed, because if you like I've mentioned it so many times, but if you look at the two away wins that we got in Millwall and Swansea, that were two brilliant wins where we scored 5 goals, conceded 1, I think it was, and we played both teams off the park, and now we're looking at a team that will struggle to score goals away from home, and it brings that question of, well, what actually needs to be done to ensure results? Because it's not like we don't play well sometimes away from home. It's just there's no final kind of product. But once again, that's kind of been the story of Huddersfield Town so far this season. But yeah, Phillips I think was probably our best player when he came on. Just looked like an imminent threat. And with Middlesbrough being down to 10 men, I think we probably did deserve more out of the game. With Phillips coming on, it just gave us that extra kind of what's the word? It gives that outlet. That extra outlet, yeah. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one, but not to take away from Borough, but I think that both of their goals were preventable very easily.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's just a story of Huddersfield Town away from home, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, definitely. Go on, Jack.
Yeah, I think we'll wrap up the Borough game there, and we'll talk about what happened probably the day after, and that was the surprising links to Ravel Morrison, formerly of about 20 clubs. But yeah, so Ravel Morrison, it's a very, very, very intriguing one. I have my opinions about him as a person. I have my opinions about him as a player. But for me, at the moment, we just need bodies. We need numbers. Yeah. Just in the final little scrap, just to get us over the line and help us stay up fairly comfortably. And he's a good player. Like he can pick a pass, he can go around the man. But it's so clear he's got something wrong with his attitude and his application, because you don't get. I think seriously, I think it is 13 clubs, including us. I think it might be 13, including us, in 11 years. Which is really poor. Obviously, he was a big talent, a big hyped up talent at Man United by some big names, Sir Alex, one of them. So it's just if he can come in and apply himself and want to play. And he did put in a podcast earlier last week, I think, saying that he just really wants a club and he really wants to find a home and he wants to play again and he wants a long-term deal. And I think if you can show that for us, that'd be interesting. But what are your thoughts on it, I suppose?
I mean, I'll start off and just say I agree with you. I mean, he's a quite superb talent. I mean, and he always has been. And I think he's that one who just slips through the net quite easily. And I think upon watching his podcast, there's that definite regret there. And he said, he said that he changed 90% of his life, which is it's quite upsetting because he could have been absolutely fantastic footballer. I don't think anyone can deny that, regardless of his personal kind of story in life. And I think if he does find that team and kind of adapts, and I think there is that problem of adaptation, because there clearly is, because I mean, quite frankly, he's failed in 12 different environments, which is just not what a footballer should do. You should, 3 or 4 clubs and you settle at your fourth. Well, that's fine. Would I be annoyed if he was brought in? No, it's an extra body. Would I be annoyed if he was brought in and didn't apply himself? Yes, but is that expected? Yes. So it's kind of a grab in the dark. And I'll go to you, Ben, because I think we kind of all got the same idea here, and that's why I don't want to drag this out for very long. How would you feel, regardless of his background and what he's done in the past, how would you feel if Morrison was announced, today?
If I came off the podcast and saw Terrier inbound, Ravel Morrison joins on a 6-month deal, I'd be quite happy with it, to be quite honest. If I saw 18 months, I'd be a bit questionable about it, because I think although he said that he wants that long-term contract and a long-term home where he plays consistently, I think that summer is going to be a massive window for us, free agents, not free agents, because there's going to be a lot of players out of contract in the Championship, a lot of players going out in lower Prem sides, a lot of players going out in League One sides. So I think there's a massive chance to look into the free agent market, and I think that potentially giving Ravel Morrison an 18-month contract, say for example he does really well in this 6-month period, and then we extend him for another 6 or 12 months. I don't even know if you can do 6-month contracts from September to January kind of thing. But I think that would potentially be our best bet to do, because I think he's very unreliable as a player. I don't think he's really ever had a long-term contract anywhere, which potentially makes me think if he's given a long-term contract, will we see the best of him because he's got that guarantee that he's going to be here and he's fighting to stick around for another year after that, or is he just going to be a kind of case of it's not going to work out for him if he stays for 18 months? He might play for 6 months and then just drop off. So it's a massive risk. It's a massive risk. I think that the fact that he's had so many clubs only backs that up, because it's shown that he's never really had that long-term trust in him. He was with Sheffield United last year, if I'm correct, for 6 months or so. They didn't keep him on. We didn't really see much of him in the Premier League. So it makes you again think, hang on a minute, why is he not really been played too much there? But the fact that he was signed at Sheffield United when they were doing so well makes you think, hang on a minute, is there a player still there? So I mean, we're just gonna have to wait and see. I think short-term deal suits with a potential extension, but you never know really with what's happening at the moment.
Yeah, as you say, a very interesting one, and we will have to see what happens there. So I think I don't think I can wait any longer. I think it's time to talk about the Swansea game. So we go into it 4th versus 20th in the league. I think as a neutral and as a Town fan, it would have been hard to look past the Swansea win.
Yeah.
And so we'll just jump into it. After a pretty nervy start where Swansea had a few, they were hanging around our box for 5-10 minutes, I suppose. We grew into the game, and probably the first notable action of the game was the disallowed Fraser Campbell goal, where Lewis O'Brien was off the pitch when he played it into Fraser, and it was given offside, I believe, was what was actually given. So what do you make of that, Jay?
To be honest, I haven't really looked into it much, but just because of the scoreline. But I read that if apparently O'Brien was off the pitch, which automatically makes him offside, apparently. So I mean, if that's the case, fine. But I think generally the standard of refereeing in the EFL is just, it's questionable. I mean, obviously we look back onto Tuesday where Paddy McNair was sent off for what didn't look like more, it just looked like a yellow card at most.
At best, yeah.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, some of the decisions the referee made yesterday were for both sides were just extremely questionable. And I know this disallowed goal kind of falls into that bracket. And obviously later on, a few minutes later, we've got the corner which O'Brien was shoved over. Could have gone either way. Didn't give it a penalty, and he ordered a retake, which again questionable. So I just think generally, not looking too much into the disallowed goal, because if I'm honest with you, I haven't really looked into it. The standard of refereeing is poor, and I'll take it to any of you. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think I don't think you can just limit it to the EFL. I think just across the top 4 leagues in England, I think it's just poor calls after poor calls. I mean,
yeah.
If you look back to 2010, we had English referees at the World Cup, and I can't remember the last time there was a notable English referee at any major tournament, if I'm quite honest. It's not something I take a lot of look at, but I can't remember the last time you saw like a Mark Clattenburg refereeing at like the Euros or a Champions League game, which just shows the fact that I think the reputation of English officiating it's just changed, and especially in the EFL, where it's with the Prem, you see dives every week. You see it's not as kind of rough as the Championship and the lower leagues as League One, League Two. So I think there needs to be some kind of consistency with it. I think that if that challenge by Paddy McNair is a red on Tuesday, I think there's probably a few other tackles from that game that could be seen as a red in the eyes of the officials. So it's a case of where's the consistency. And I mean, Borough had the red card the other week where I think it was Dale Fry got kicked in the head. No penalty, no red card. But player's gone off bleeding from his head, which that doesn't happen by chance. So I think just across the English, like the Association of Football, there needs to be stuff done with officiating.
Yeah, I totally agree. The standard of officiating in England is a joke at times, and VAR doesn't help that much at all either, because the people running it are fairly incompetent half the time. But who am I to say? Anyway, first goal, Fraser Campbell. So it's a fairly well-worked goal. Aaron Rowe whips in a nice ball, Pippa's cut back, and he sort of scuffs the finish, but in the end, that's sort of what takes it away from Woodman in off the post. How big is that for Fraser Campbell, getting his goal? He hasn't scored since the first game of 2021 against Reading. So probably about 7 or 8 games he hasn't scored for. How massive is that for Fraser? Yeah.
That is huge. That is just, and you could see it by his celebration. Kind of went like this, silenced out all the critics. And recently there has been a serious amount of criticism onto Fraser. And some of it, it's kind of like clear to see why he's getting it, but then others, he's kind of helpless, isn't he? He's like, what can he do? I think we've had a good amount of injuries, which has just dried up his opportunity to kind of finish and have any opportunities at goal. I mean, Luton, second half, he got absolutely nothing. First half, he got nothing as well. I mean, that's just one of the kind of instances I can name. But going back to the initial point, that is an absolutely massive goal for him. And I don't think anyone else was probably mentally struggling more than Fraser in this period, because you're a striker. What you're supposed to do, you're supposed to score. And he's having his best season in the Town shirt, but I don't think people are realising that just because of our current situation. And I think Fraser, if you're a Huddersfield Town fan and can't realise that he gives 110% every single week, you're looking, you got blurred vision. But yeah, I'm really happy for Fraser, because I don't think you can dislike him. He's a player who will give his absolute heart and soul for the club. Whether he stays next year with speculation of new arrivals coming in, and obviously we've got injured strikers, stuff like that, that's another question. But I think this season he's done an absolutely brilliant job for us. What do you think, Ben?
I think you hit the nail on the head right there. I think he works really well in two systems. I think a few weeks ago on Twitter I called him the Football League Firmino, and I'd still stick by that. He potentially doesn't score as many as he should do that you want from your striker, but I think he gets back, he helps the side out, and he, like for example, we'll compare it to yesterday and then against Sheff Wednesday. So in the Sheff Wednesday game we played 4-3-3 with Karoma and Benza, I believe it was. And Karoma would come into the box and Benza would kind of go like kind of an overlapping run, and Campbell would kind of go into like the right wing position, allowing Benza to overlap and get the ball into Karoma in the middle of the box. So I think he works really well in that kind of system where he can kind of move kind of out wide and allow somebody else to come into the middle, and he can kind of just sit back a little bit off the ball, look for the space. I think he really suits that role well. But yesterday we saw him working really well with Dwayne Holmes, who kind of was utilised as like a shadow striker, and sitting in a 10, which his ex-manager Wayne Rooney did brilliantly. And I think he really worked in that role because he was playing off somebody. We saw it with Phillips on Tuesday, that Fraser playing off somebody and somebody playing off Fraser works really well. So I think that he can fit into both the 4-3-3 and the 3-5-2, which are going to probably be our main formations now for the rest of the season, I think, with injuries coming back. And I think it could be a really massive thing for Fraser. I think he could potentially get a few more goals this season. Obviously, I think he's scored a goal every single month now this season, which is quite impressive, to be fair. And we speak about him, lack of scoring goals. He's now our equal top scorer with Josh Brome, I believe. So it's a massive thing for him to score yesterday, and his confidence will only be shooting up because of it. But like Huddersfield Town, we normally see a goal before half time, and it would be Swansea that would score at this time with Horahan with a free kick. So, what are your thoughts on the goal, Jack?
Yeah, I think first of all, who shoots from there? Like fair play, fair play. Like Horahan is a fantastic free kick taker, and his set pieces have always been quite phenomenal from his Barnsley days. But yeah, I think Schofield has got a lot of stick for his positioning with a free kick, and I think it's very harsh. I think I said to you two last night, say Schofield hadn't made the errors he has done in recent weeks, he would be getting absolutely zero stick for that. They're just piling it on because it's just something else to criticise. I think first and foremost, it's a fantastic strike. Yes, he could save it had he positioned himself better, but I think he just wasn't expecting the shot. I wasn't expecting the shot. I mean, watching it and seeing the full picture. So I think it was just a kick in the teeth to concede at half time, or just before half time, I should say. And I'd be lying if I said I wasn't expecting Swansea to go bag 2 or 3 in the second half and wrap up the game and put us to bed. But obviously that didn't happen. So I mean, should we move on to that, or I don't know?
Yeah, I mean, all you can say is wow. I mean, at half time, I kind of thought to myself, Huddersfield Town, it's going to happen again. How do we stop it? We don't. But we did. We actually won. And this is the first time we've covered a win on this show. And I'll tell you, it's been hard setting it up and constantly covering losses every week, especially when we are younger individuals and maybe don't know how to rein it in a bit with our emotions, as we saw last episode. If you haven't watched that, it's a good watch. I suggest you go and have a watch. But I mean, all we can say is wow. I think one of the standout performers yesterday was Lewis O'Brien, and this year it's fair to say he's been extremely underwhelming. I mean, some instances you can't pick a 5-yard pass, which is very, very worrying. And to say kind of top end Championship Premier League clubs want him, and he can't even pick a 5-yard pass is quite alarming. But yesterday he did all the basics perfectly. He does what he does best. He ran at their back line, and he got his reward. He got a goal and an assist. His goal was brilliant. Let's say 20-25 yards, bottom corner, keeper no chance. I mean, we'll scrap all of his this year's performances for this episode. Jack, how important is that to Lewis for his confidence?
Yeah, it's massive. I'll be the first to say that Lewis O'Brien hasn't been good enough this season by and large. He's a fantastic player and I love him to bits, obviously, because he's a homegrown player, you know. But he's been off it. And yesterday was like the Lewis O'Brien of old. So he was charging at defences, he was getting around the back line. That was actually how we created the chance for Fraser's disallowed goal. He's running at the defence. His goal was perfect. The Fraser's little layoff, and he smashed it. And it's gone. I described it as a yard trimmer on the Terriers talk account, and yeah, he's gonna be proud of that one. I think it's a lovely hit, and got an assist later on, albeit not a spectacular one because the goal itself was the spectacular thing about that move. But we'll touch on that a bit later. But I think he's going to be really pleased. I think it's going to give him a bit of confidence, a bit of belief. So going into the end of the season, going into crunch time, it's massive. And not so long after that, we scored our third. So Ben, if you want to talk about that.
Yes, I mean it was really good build up. I mean I'll touch on the O'Brien goal really quickly.
Yeah.
Just his role in the 3-5-2 was how we want to see Lewis O'Brien, and I think it suited him a lot more than his role previously. He was allowed to kind of be a box to box again, which he was with the 4-3-3 when he was partnered with Hogg and IT. So I think the role really suits him in that kind of left side of midfield. It's clear to see that he's got a good relationship with Rowe. And I mean, just the way that we set up yesterday was perfect because, you know, Sarr, I think very well we saw from the past few games, he's pushed out to the left hand side a lot more, potentially playing as somewhat like a left back at times, which he can play there if needs be. But obviously, I don't think we'll get to that point now with the emergence of Rowe into the first team as well. But I think that just the way that we set up yesterday was brilliant. I think we saw that Vallejo was more of a right-sided centre half, and then Keogh was kind of the centre half, which I think is brilliant because Keogh and Vallejo both are experienced. You know, well, a full three centre halves are all experienced, but I think Keogh and Vallejo are very experienced at playing on the right centre half side or just in the middle. So I think we just set up perfectly, and it just suited when players played in positions. It just showed that we can actually go forward. Rose was used as like a left wing back or a left mid. Pipa was used as a right wing back, right mid kind of player, and it just allowed us to, like as a unit, push forward, and we saw the best of the attacking capabilities. So I mean, if somebody else wants to touch on Holmes first.
Yeah, just before we do touch on that, and I'm going off piece here because this kind of wasn't on our script as such. Alex Vallejo, I mean, it's hard not to talk about him. He's John Gorick Stankovic if Stankovic got game time.
Yeah.
He's a carbon copy, if not better. I mean, that might be unfair on Stank because we never saw him play, you know, get a long run of games, but he's Iceman, isn't he? He's not phased. He can pick a pass, he can drive forward, he can command. He's just brilliant. I mean, if someone else wants to kind of elaborate, but he's just so good.
He's a model professional, isn't he?
Yeah.
I think he can play anywhere across the midfield. He can play in a back three. He can probably play a shifting just in the back four, and he's brilliant. And on a free, I think a lot of people are kind of a bit questionable about him because obviously we didn't see him really play any first team games until January. But he's coming to the side and he looks like one of the first names on the team sheet, and you know, it just proves how much like quality there is in the free market. And you know, I think he's very slowly becoming a very reliable player. And you know, Hogg's just signed a new contract, so I think next season, if invested in, you know, centre halves and midfield, I think it'll be a very, very tough decision as to what happens with Alex Vallejo, because personally, I think he deserves a spot. And whether that is a case of we see a back three potentially of Alex Vallejo, Roman Edmonds, Green, and Sarr, I think that could be a very, very strong defence next season.
Yeah, so we've gone full circle now, and I'm going to talk about a third goal. That's no problem with me. So yeah, it's a lovely build-up play. I think a ball sent over the top. Fraser goes to win it. He doesn't quite get there, but the ball goes back to Aaron Rowe, and it's a beautiful pass. It's not being talked about enough. I think we'll touch properly on Aaron Rowe a bit after we cover all the goals. But Aaron Rowe's pass there was superb. And Dwayne Holmes, it's a good finish. Keeper's not got a chance. He hits it with power, hits it with pace. Good level of accuracy right in the top corner. So yeah, that's his first goal on his return, and I don't know if you saw, but he did dedicate that goal to Jordan Sinnott as well, which is a beautiful touch. It makes me really proud, moments like that, to be a Huddersfield Town fan, to be honest.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's very classy of Dwayne to do that, and he puts us 3-1 up, and we're in dreamland at that point, I suppose. Doesn't feel real, and it wasn't. We didn't have to wait long for the fourth goal as well. Yeah. So someone else can talk about that, because yeah.
I will definitely, because that it's just gorgeous, isn't it? I mean, our third goal was front foot attacking football, and our fourth goal was just wow. I mean, what more can you say? I mean, there's good goals. I mean, you've got Van La Parra versus West Brom, you've got Lolly versus West Ham, you've got Mounier versus Blackburn, but I think that probably tops all of them, because the angle he took it from was, I mean, it's just impossible. I mean, all the other goals were fairly straight, but the way he took it, and I think we ought to say thank you to a little bobble on the Johnson Stadium pitch, because it wasn't a bad bobble, and normally they are bad. It just, that bobble just sat it up for him perfectly, and it was almost like a half volley, and the way he caught that, and the way it floated across the goal, and just like it dipped and just nestled in the top corner, it brings a smile to your face, because I think it's fair to say that the first, I don't know how many games Dwayne's played, maybe five.
Five.
So far, is it five? Yeah. I mean, the first 4 games he's been out of position. I don't think people realise that. He's been played out on the wing, and it's, I mean, he can play there, but we signed him to play where he did play yesterday, and he was brilliant. I mean, he was energetic right from the start. You could see he was a man on a mission today, and I think it was fitting for Dwayne to score a double yesterday, because he deserved that, and I think that last goal just summed up our luck and our kind of drive and our desire to get 3 points yesterday, especially against Swansea, because I mean, I read we dropped something silly, 23 points this season. And if we won them all, we'd be joint fourth with Swansea, and it shows we are a good team. You know, we are. There's no doubt about that. But we've been plagued with injuries. We've had inconsistent partnerships in the heart of our defence, which is never going to help. We've had changes of goalkeeper. We've had confidence dips. That yesterday was Huddersfield Town at their very best, and I am not afraid to admit that, because I've probably nattered on for too long about that goal, but I'm in dreamland, so I'll let someone else kind of take the reins.
Yeah, I mean, when we went 2-0 up against Wickham, I think somebody put in the chat group, good podcast. Then we know what happened. Then when Benson scores, good podcast. So I don't think anybody put it in when we went 1-0, but when it got to 3-1, I think the podcast chat was just full of good podcast, great podcast, and it's just, it fills us with confidence, because I'm going out on a limb here, but I think we deserve more from yesterday as well. Yeah, I think that the injury to Jordan Morris, who was the lad that Swansea got in on loan from Seattle, I believe it is, went off injured, and there was news last night that he was in a leg brace. It was rumored that he'd done his ACL or his MCL or something like that. So from the Terriers podcast, we hope he's all right. But I think it put the game out of our hands then, because I think Swansea just kind of looked to sit back, as a major attacking outlet for them has gone off. There's not really looking like there's going to be potentially any more goals in the game for Swansea, so just sit back and just damage reduction really. And they did it really well. I think on another day, if Morris doesn't go off, I think, or even if they haven't used the 5 subs before then, because I think it was literally within 2 minutes of them using the fifth substitution, he got his injury. I think if there's 11v11 until the 90th minute, I think there's potentially 5-6 goals for Huddersfield.
Yeah.
Which I'm going to laugh at myself saying that, but yesterday we were that good. And I don't want to take anything away from Swansea, but we looked like the side that were in fourth yesterday because it was just a dominant performance. Before the game, if you'd have looked at the form table, I think if you still do, Swansea sit at the top of the form table for the last 10 games. We sit at the bottom. And that's just the championship for you. And I think it's just championship football for you. And it's a brilliant league. It really is. Week in, week out, as a Huddersfield fan, it might not be brilliant, but for a neutral, there's so many games that, it's just good football to watch. Because you never know what's going to happen. And I mean, I think that takes us on to really the youngsters, I mean, most of our substitutes were young players, apart from Alex Pritchard, I believe, who, came on yesterday, didn't really do too much. We had High, Brown, Phillips and Stearman as well, as an experienced player on the bench, which was good to see. Yeah, Stearman's one of the academy products, I believe. But it's good to see Stearman back after his injury. Whether he'll be prominent in the side, that's unknown at the moment. He did his job when he came on. He looked a bit kind of ropey because it's his first game time in probably about 3 months now. But it's good to see those youngsters on the bench. Whether that's a question of whether we have enough depth, it's questionable again. But speaking about the younger players and the academy players, I think it moves us on perfectly. We put a poll out yesterday speaking about kind of who fans thought were the best player. We've obviously had debates in the group chat as well. So who do we all think was the best player this week?
I mean, if I may, I'd like to say Aaron Rowe. Across both games, I think across both games he was my man of the match. I think in the Swansea one you could have picked 6 or 7, and I would have probably given you it. 6 or 7 probably were deserving of it. But Aaron Rowe is just. I remember when he came on for his first ever start as a winger against Bournemouth, and if you'd have told me in 2 years he'd be dropping a near perfect performance against promotion chasers at left wing back.
Opposite position to where he played.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't believe you. He was just fantastic. He was pacey. He was hungry. He never gave up on a tackle. And I think I don't want to be morbid here, but should it come that Harry Toffolo does unfortunately depart in the summer, I think we've got a Harry Toffolo replacement already at the club because he is so good at getting up and down, and he can pick out a cross. The ball he put in for Pippa to cut back for Campbell, whether he meant it or not, was a good ball. So I think he was superb in both games. I read someone saying, and I completely agree, someone saying he's the first player since Van La Parra who wants to go one-on-one, like directly. You could argue and Benza, but Aaron Rowe, he's and Rolando Aaron.
Aaron Rowe's doing it more consistently, isn't he?
Yeah, he's got Rolando Aaron, I suppose, but he hasn't been in for a while. But Aaron Rowe's, he's fantastic. I'm sure you all agree. But is there any other candidates who you guys would say?
No, I don't know, but just because Rowe's been so brilliant, I mean, you could say Holmes, but then again, he was kind of non-existent at Borough. But yeah, I think we are Aaron Rowe propagandists, so to speak. And we were speaking last week. I think the first episode we had Alex Vallejo as our Terriers Talk Star of the Week, and since then it's just gone downhill. We've not won.
Never had one for a bit, have we?
We've not had one. So I think we're all happy to announce that the Terriers Talk Star of the Week is Aaron Rowe, because he was just absolutely superb. And I think that wraps up a very well-spirited conversation about Swansea. And the only thing after the Swansea game which kind of caught all of the Huddersfield Town fan base's attention was the rumours regarding Yaya Sanogo. I mean, that's just come out of the blue, hasn't it? What do you think? I'll take it to any of you, because I don't really know how to feel at this moment in time. It's an extra body. I mean, he's not entirely prolific, and I think he's kind of turned into an internet meme just because he was one of those at Arsenal who just didn't do well. I mean, I don't really know. So if he does come in, hopefully he does well. I mean, I'll back him because I'll back any player who fights for the shirt. So, Ben, Jack, what do you think?
I think it's an interesting signing. He's been called Yaya Sanogo on Twitter parts of the day, and I think it was I'm not sure if it's correct, but Peter O'Rourke, something like that, this morning pretty much said that Huddersfield Town have agreed a deal with Yaya Sanogo. So it looks like within probably the next week or so we will be seeing a Terrier inbound, potentially 2, potentially 3 Terrier inbounds. With Niasse, Ravel Morrison, and Yaya Sanogo. I think it adds depth. Phil at the start of the season said that we had 5 strikers. I think we've probably got we've now got 5 strikers that I'm very confident in saying. We've got Yaya Sanogo, we've got Fraser Campbell, we've got Danny Ward, who is a bit ropey, but is there. We've got Umar Niasse, who I think is the absolute cream of the crop, and then we've got Kieran Phillips. Then we've got when Josh Crone comes back, I think he'd probably be that 5th striker rather than Danny Ward. So, I mean, it's somewhat. I can't say it's underwhelming because it's a signing we've called out for a striker for absolutely ages. We never know what could happen. It could really suit in the Championship. He might really suit the play style. He's another player that's really not kicked on like Ravel Morrison. He was part of the Arsenal side in 2013-14, and he looked half decent then, but he's never really done anything since then. He had loan periods at Ajax. He had the Crystal Palace when in the Championship, where he played with Fraser Campbell. Interestingly, so potentially them two could start up front, and we could see something like that. But I think it offers something else to Umar Niasse, Fraser Campbell, Kieran Phillips. So we're just gonna have to wait and see what he really does. There's not really you can say about it. He's not really done too well in his career. Hopefully, he can do well for us. We're obviously gonna back him as a player, as long as he fights for the badge. But yeah, I mean that pretty much sums up as to everything for this week. So next week we've got 2 massive away games in Derby and Preston. Derby's an interesting one because they're somewhat near us in the table, and Preston away is just is something that Huddersfield Town fans consistently never want to speak about after a result. So from both of you, how many points are we wanting to get? I want 3 at the least.
I'd like 6, but no, seriously, I'd honestly take 2. I'd take a draw from both games, but I think we can go at Derby, and I think we can beat Derby. I think they've definitely improved a lot since the last time we played them, and on that day we weren't that convincing, but we still managed to get a win. If I remember correctly, Bakuna goal, lovely goal, but I digress. Yeah, so I think we can go at Derby and get a win. I think Preston away, my heart says we can go in, but my head, who knows that we haven't won at Deepdale for God knows how long, says just write it off. But I could agree with Ben. I think 3. I don't think it's a must. I think if we got 2 draws would be nice. Just keep picking up points. But I think the goal now is to stay up relatively comfortably, because I really can't see us going down after that. I think the confidence will be sky high going into some important games. I think we'll get a couple more nice wins before the end of the season, and these 2 games could prove to be massive, but I don't think it's the end of the world should we lose 1 or maybe even 2. I don't know if we'll lose both, but it'll be an interesting couple of games. I'm really looking forward to the Derby one, less so Preston. But Jay, what are your thoughts on the 2 games?
Definitely, like you said, I'm buzzing for Derby. I don't think, obviously, as our viewers will be watching tomorrow, I don't think tomorrow can come quick enough, because our confidence, I think, within the squad, and what we don't see, kind of behind the scenes, I think the players will be buzzing. And I think even in training, even if we have 1 training session between the 2, obviously yesterday's game and tomorrow's game as we are watching. I think the players will fight even harder in training. They'll show the manager that, yeah, we are up for this. Derby, full credit to them. They've dragged themselves out of a massive, massive, massive deep hole. I mean, they had points deductions. They were doing awfully under Philip Cocu. They've lost some integral players, obviously, towards Richard. Oh, sorry, not Keogh. I forgot he went to Dons. Dwayne Holmes. I think there was kind of a mixed kind of reception when Holmes went. I think you've got Derby fans who really, really think he's kind of one that slips through the net, and then you've also got ones who just say he didn't really play for the shirt. But they have lost some good few players. I mean, they've done well with recruitment, and they're doing well under Wayne Rooney. But I think we can really take it to Derby tomorrow. Less so Preston. I think I'd cut my right hand off to get a draw at Deepdale, because I can't remember the last time we got a result at Preston. And we'll go immediate score predictions for Derby, because I think Preston, we can kind of judge that in the week. Obviously, we won't be recording, but I'll go first, and I'd love to see a 2-1 Huddersfield Town. I don't think it would be a high-scoring game, but I think 2-1 would really, really lift the spirits.
Yeah, I think 2-0. I think a clean sheet for Aaron Schofield would massively, massively boost his confidence.
Yeah.
I think if we play a 3-5-2 again, I think that again we could do really well. I mean, very quickly, I want to touch on Naby Sarr. I think for the past few weeks, I've been his biggest critic, but yesterday he was absolutely brilliant. He put in a number of key tackles. Again, clearances off the line, and he just proved how much of a good sign he was with that game yesterday. So I mean, I think if we play back three again, I mean, pretty much if we keep the team the same, I think we could see another positive result for Huddersfield, and that's why I'm going to say 2-0.
I don't usually like to predict games, to be honest, but I did against Swansea, so I will today. I'm going to agree with Jay and say 2-1 Huddersfield Town. I think it is crucial that we keep 3-5-2 because we look so good. Keep it while it's working. Keep it. If it's not broke, don't fix it, as they say. Exact same. Harry Toffolo doesn't come in for me.
No.
I like Harry Toffolo a lot. I don't know if you can dislike him as a Huddersfield Town fan, but he wasn't in the best form before his suspension. He had a pretty awful game against Luton, to be honest. As did Pippa, to be fair. But I think Aaron Rowe has to keep his place. And Toffolo doesn't come in for me. But yeah, I think just keep the same team. Go out at Derby. They've got some good players. They've got Colin Kazim-Richards, who's come into a bit of goal scoring form as of late. I'm struggling with the name anymore now. Louis Sibley, is he injured? I don't know. I haven't really heard much about him as of late. Christian Bielek is out injured, and I've mentioned him so many times on the show, but I love him. He's brilliant. He is absolutely brilliant. It's Christian Bielek, and I, for one, I'm very happy he's out for our visit to Derby. So yeah, I'll say 2-1, and I think that's about it for today. So thank you for watching, everyone. As I say, we're really enjoying doing this, and it's finally we could review a win. So thank you for watching. If you haven't already, if you could subscribe, like the video, share it around, and we will see you next time reviewing Preston and Derby. So see you later. Bye bye.